Please be seated. So today you might have noticed that we're using a little different translation. It's a translation called The Message. And Ken, our reader today, wanted to read it. I know he uses that for his devotions. So kids, now you can tell your parents that cotton candy is in the Bible. And it should be. This text we have about Jesus feeding 5,000, it's a text that many of us have heard before, that even most people who don't go to church have heard the story of Jesus feeding 5,000. It's really an incredible miracle that Jesus takes 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish, and feeds 5,000 people. And it's a story worth sharing because it's an incredible story. But what's so interesting to me about it is the disciples' attitude when they're having this conversation with Jesus. So Jesus, the text starts out when he had heard the news. He had just heard the news that John the Baptist had been killed. And he was kind of, as you could imagine, a little bit down. And so he kind of wanted to get away and be by himself. But the crowd follows him, and he finds comfort in the crowd. And Jesus is surrounded by the crowd, and he doesn't want the crowd to go anywhere because it's taking his mind off the fact that John the Baptist is dead, and he finds comfort in it. And so they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere because that's where Jesus wanted to go. There's no places to eat, and so the disciples say, well, it's getting late, and we need to send these folks away so they can get something to eat. Jesus says, well, give them something to eat. And they say, well, we don't have enough. We don't have enough. I think it's something we say a lot. We don't have enough. We don't have enough a lot of things. But I think the first thing, the thing we say most often, we don't have enough, we finish that sentence with the word time. Right? How many of y'all are busy people? I know you are. Even retired folks here. I was talking to Don Renwick this week. He says, I'm more busy now that I'm retired than I've ever been before in my life. We just don't have enough time. And God calls us to do all kinds of things with our lives. God calls us to read the scriptures, to pray, to go out and to serve. And you know what? I'm sorry, Jesus, but I just don't have enough time. I was a week before last in San Antonio with Michelle. We went down for a couple days, and we were walking along the river walk, as couples do in the evening, and enjoying a nice night together. And this man was there with his daughter, and he stopped us, and he said, excuse me, sir, I'm not asking for money, but my daughter and I are really hungry, and he started this long story. And I thought to myself, I don't have enough time for this. So I just stopped him, pulled out my wallet, and said, here you go. Because it was easier for me just to give him $10 than to sit through his whole story, walk him over to McDonald's or wherever, and I don't know what he did with the money, but I don't have enough time, right? In reality, what I'm saying is there are other things more important to me than to sit here and listen to you. And so when we say we don't have enough time, what we're saying is, well, we've got time for Facebook. We've got time to go see movies. We've got time to do the things we want to do. But we don't have enough time to do the things you want us to do. And so that's part of being a sinner, is lying to God and saying, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to do the things you want me to do. I think the second thing, and probably the first place you all thought I was going, I don't have enough money, right? Now, I know that many of you do have enough money, and we've had that conversation before in Bible studies. Some of you folks who are retired said, I wouldn't go back to work for $1 million. I have enough. And I will say that many of you and most of you are very generous in your pledges, and this congregation is where it is today because of your generosity. But it just seems like there's always something else, someone else wanting you to give, right? We get probably a half a dozen letters a week coming to our church office of different organizations looking for a donation. And there's so many really powerful organizations in this world that do so much good work, and they all do it because of the generosity of others. But there comes a point where you just say, I don't have enough money to give to everybody. And so what do you do with that? That's your excuse to Jesus. Jesus, I'm sorry. I just don't have enough to give to everybody. If you haven't heard, this Ebola outbreak in Africa. And we as Lutherans are there. We're in Sierra Leone. We're trying to help, but we need, the organization that's there needs financial support. And it's something that I know some of us are very passionate about. And we as a congregation should do something. But the easy and quick thing is to say, I'm sorry, Jesus, we just don't have enough money to help them as well. And so each time one of those letters come in, each time somebody contacts us and says, this is a very important thing going on in the world, we have to look at it and say, is Jesus calling us to do something here? Because if Jesus is calling us, I don't have enough money is not an excuse. For me, this week, one of the things that I struggled with, I'll be completely honest with you, is I reached a point on Wednesday night where I thought to myself, wow, I don't have enough faith. Have you ever gotten there? Have you ever said that to yourself? I don't have enough faith. I'm really surprised, let me say this, pleasantly surprised and joyfully humbled by the fact that we are so crowded this morning. Typically, the first Sunday of August is not a busy Sunday. But I am so happy to see you all here today. And I'm reminded again of the true miracle that is abiding grace. The miracle of this congregation, the miracle of the generosity of others like Ed Baker, who said, yeah, I'll try and build an altar. And he built it the best altar he could possibly build, and it's beautiful. And just so many people, some of whom don't even go to this church, that made this church what it is. And we were sitting here in our this building that we have as a church, and we were listening to architects this week who were coming here to talk about master planning and what are the possibilities for our property and what we can do in the future and the buildings that we can build and the people that we can bring in and all the parking spots we can put on the property. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I'm a strong enough leader, a gifted enough leader to get this congregation to there. And I said that to a few people afterwards. I said that to Ray Morrell. And he goes, well, you got us here. How did you do that? And I said, I have no idea. He said, well, you've got us. You don't have to do it by yourself. And I thought, well, yeah, that's right. That's right. I am profoundly proud of what we've been able to do here. But I'm at the point now where it's like, do I have enough faith? Do I believe that God is calling us to continue to grow to a point where we're going to have a building project? And of course the answer is yes. And so I just have to get over myself. So Jesus says to them, bring the fish, bring the bread to me. And if you were the person holding the bread and the fish, you were probably like, well, wait a second. If I give them to you, you're going to do something with them, and you're going to feed them. But I'm the one who's been carrying this bread and this fish all stinking day, and I'm hungry, and if I give it to you, I might not have something to eat. But he says, okay, Jesus, here you go. Jesus takes it and performs a miracle that people are talking about 2,000 years later. Here's the good news, is that we take our little time and we give it to Jesus. We take our little money that we have and we give it to Jesus. We take our little faith and we give it to Jesus. And Jesus changes the world through us. We get to be the miracle. Amen.